When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hey folks, it's Mark back with the Fearless Mindset Podcast. And we got a new guest today. Heidi joins us from Phoenix, Arizona in the hot, sunny state. How you doing, Heidi?
Doing good.
And did you just get off work, working the beat?
No, not the beat, but yes, I just got off work.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Heidi has been very busy there. How many years in law enforcement have you worked down there?
So I retired with 25 years from Phoenix Police Department, and I am still working. Even though I'm retired, I'm trying to live that second pension life.
Smart girl, smart lady. Yeah, way to go. So what are you most passionate about right now? What is the heartthrob of what gets you up in the morning and just gives you that burning in the fire in your belly type of passion to change the world? What is that for you? I know you're in the sex trafficking world, but tell us more about you.
Yeah. So when I retired from Phoenix Police Department, I left a detective position that I had been in for over 13 years. It was the Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit. It's an undercover position. And in that position, we worked targeting sex buyers and traffickers and rescuing victims of sex trafficking, adults and juveniles. And so continuing on with that effort, I have started my own consulting business, consulting law enforcement on undercover operations, targeting sex buyers, and then also doing general community awareness about sex trafficking. I've developed a whole course. I have lists and guides and tips for, the community, parents and teens about prevention of trafficking, because basically we all can know what it is, and a lot of people actually don't know. They get confused about what it is, and they believe the myth still. But there's also things we can do to prevent this from happening in the first place. And so the more people know about that, that's what I'm passionate about, is getting that out there. And then, in my experience, I've participated in multiple trials where traffickers decided to go to trial. And it really makes a difference when the community knows more about trafficking, because it's really hard to convince people that a person who's freely walking down the side of the road with a cell phone in their hand is trapped and not free to leave. But when in reality, as a sex trafficking victim, they are trapped and not free to leave. And so getting that connection, making that connection for people is a little difficult.
Wow. But the power you have, it must be rewarding when you know you've saved a few lives a week or a day, saving somebody's life from that world.
Yeah, no, I absolutely have had victims tell me I've saved their life. And I am very, very blessed to have the authority and have been put in the position to get them justice and put traffickers away for hundreds of years.
And would you say those traffickers, are they U.S. citizens, or are they all cartel, human trafficking runners, or working with coyotes?
Oh.
What would you say? What would you describe that as?
No. I would say in my own experience, they are, there isn't really a demographic. They are men, also women. They are adults. And I've had a couple of juveniles actually be so advantageous to be trafficking other juveniles themselves. And so it isn't really a perfect, explanation of a demographic that I can say, this is where this problem comes from. And another spin on all of that is that a lot of the trafficking that I've experienced is where the trafficker's own family members were also traffickers, or their, mothers were in prostitution. And so that's kind of a learned behavior in their world. And so that's definitely, another whole dynamic in this situation that is a commonality that I've definitely seen.
Crazy. It's like the crazy underworld to me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Super Bowl coming around this weekend. I'm getting so many, hey, do you have any executive protection bodyguards down there in Phoenix? They're like, hey, they're tapped out. I think they're bringing people from other states down just to fill jobs and for the weekend. But that's got to be problematic. I mean, I can't imagine all the people who get the kids young adults, teenagers that are getting hurt by this industry that are being forced to do things, coerced to do things against their nature by these, predators. And can you take the audience into like maybe a dive into that world? What's going to happen in the Super Bowl? What do you think's happening?
Yeah, so I've worked the last 2 Super Bowls that were hosted in Phoenix as an undercover, and I know my old unit is working their butts off, doing all kinds of undercover operations, being everywhere where potential predators, sex buyers, and traffickers are going to be, and doing these operations to proactively engage in catching these people before they're exploiting live victims and all of those things. But definitely it isn't just Super Bowl, it's any live event, and we have a lot going on in Phoenix. It's not just Super Bowl this weekend, it's a golf tournament, and we just had Barrett Jackson, and these are industries particularly that men are attracted to and men would go to and attend. And so that causes an increase in the demand for the problem. And traffickers aren't dumb, and they know where, to try and find the most money. And so they're going to follow that demand. And that's why that is, a typical thing that we see, that the increase of this particular crime is related to that demand being abundant surrounding those events. So that's definitely what's going on right now. I just recently did a whole consult with an organization that's actually doing outreach, and they are on the street prostitution areas, and they're out there to make contact with and offer assistance and a way out for maybe individuals that are being exploited. And so it's really a problem that's being combated by all sides, and that's one of the only ways that we're going to make an impact.
Now, would you say, where do these human traffickers, are they online? Are they working the victim on social media? I saw that thing you put on LinkedIn. I think it was this morning I saw that, of someone that was on, I think, TikTok or something.
Yeah. So anywhere where there's private messaging is, where a trafficker could be, or even a sex buyer or a child predator. Anywhere where it's a platform to reach vulnerable individuals. For instance, if you have like a 14-year-old that's got an open profile, which means open door to any stranger to come in and engage with them, they do that quite frequently. I had one instance where I had an investigation and I did a search warrant on just a week's time period where this trafficker sent 91 messages, like just copy paste, throwing out that fishing line with the bait on it, and trying to engage with as many people as possible, mostly victims that he's going to exploit, to try and see who will take that bait and converse with him so that they can convince them to go with them and join their team or do whatever it is they want them to do. So definitely the internet, but also out on the streets.
So they're using all social media platforms. They're everywhere, not just one place.
Social media, like gaming, like Discord, or like, games like Minecraft.
Gaming?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No way.
Yep,
I would never have guessed.
Yeah. And I'm not just talking about traffickers. I'm talking about sex buyers also. But, sextortion is another part of this whole thing, convincing, young people to share images of themselves and, all of those things. So.
Yeah, I heard somebody say what they're really good at is taking a picture from somebody on social media and threatening them to do, if they don't give money, they're going to exploit them to their friends and family of the picture they used on social media. I've heard that's a big common practice.
There's definitely an element of threats in this trafficking world for sure. Sextortion and threats for physical violence also, but definitely threats. I've had victims describe, being photographed and then them, saying they're going to share that image with their family or put it out on the internet. So definitely, more of that is, after they're already got them kind of with them, and it's kind of a means to control them and keep them with them. But definitely, like in the initial phases, I would say it would be, kind of development of a relationship, or we're going to be together in some relationship, more so than threatening them in that way. But definitely a part of it later on, once they get to know each other. and they're not doing something that the trafficker wants them to be doing.
Wow. During your time in law enforcement, did you see, like I was watching the show, I think it was on Discovery Channel. It was fascinating because I think we talked about that. I just stopped watching, like, holy cow. It was just blew me away that they're, using, human trafficking for, the harvesting of organs, and then they kill the person they get the organs from. I'm like, it's so foreign to me. I mean, I think we live in in a bubble here in the States that we don't think this stuff really happens, but it does happen daily.
Yeah, and I don't have much experience with that, but definitely that's a huge new thing, and you're not the first person that's asked me about that, actually. So that's, definitely a trafficking of an organ is a concern for sure. Probably a thing that's going to be more prevalent.
Yeah, you when you're in law enforcement, do you see a heavy influence from the cartel doing that? It's just everybody's involved with it. It doesn't matter what organization, everybody's doing to make some money.
Yeah, so definitely the cartels, gangs. I mean, it used to be back when I first started in the unit, 2007, 2006, where it was, it was individuals and there was territorial issues, and they, were, this is my territory, my street. Now they kind of work together, and gangs are getting more into it. And what it is if you think about it, you can traffic a person over and over and over again and then never get caught unless they snitch on you, unless they speak. So if you can control their mouth, you are good to go. And if they're trafficking, drugs or stolen property, those are things you can get caught for having if you get pulled over by the police or something. So that, in combination with how much more money you can make trafficking a person, that is definitely something that, unfortunately, criminal organizations are recognizing, and they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, it's not. It's hard. Hate to say it, but it's the ever-growing problem. It's, you could probably, like you say, that person can be sold over and over again versus you give them the ball of crystal or, some coke or whatever. That's one transaction. But that human, that's ongoing. And that I just can't imagine what that person goes through. They probably get groomed as adolescent, and the teenagers, they're out there doing their thing for whoever's their pimp or whatever. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. So typically a lot of adults that I've had contact with that were, being trafficked did tell me that they started when they were younger, and there was no one there to talk to. There was no one there to disclose. They didn't trust the police. And, in reality, we were just arresting prostitutes. And when the trafficker's saying, you're just going to go to jail if you try and tell the police, unfortunately, that was what was happening. So it was easier for them to convince them that was what's going to happen to them. Definitely now we're doing more. We're asking the question we never asked before, which is, what can we do to help you get out of this situation? My agency had a victim advocate actually assigned to the unit, and that victim advocate would basically go out at 2:00 in the morning when we were out on a call, and they would, take the victim aside, and everything that they shared together was confidential, and, gave them an option to leave right then. Resources, a bus ticket, hotel room, a shelter bed, all of those things right then. And that's, definitely how law enforcement has evolved and changed and realized this is what we need to be doing to get people out of this situation. So we're not dealing with them again, and also getting them help, like we say we want to do. So very important to evolve with the problem.
And from a prosecution standpoint, are they delivering more of a heavy sentencing towards the people involved with human trafficking? Are they getting harsher sentences? Or are they getting the revolving door when it goes into jail and get out really quick post bail?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I also recognized in the time that I've been doing this. Early on in my career working this unit, there were plea offers for 9-10 years when these people have, committed horrible things against other juveniles, multiple juveniles, certainly deserve longer sentences. And fast forward to now, I have, I think, a record in the United States for a case involving a trafficker. It was familial trafficking. It was the uncle trafficking his niece and stepdaughter and some other adult females. And that case went to trial. 105 count indictment, was found guilty on 101 and was, sentenced to 493.5 years in prison. that's like a dramatic change. And I like to talk about that case a lot because I want law enforcement to see, it's worth it to put in the investment because these cases are not easy. These cases are really hard. You've got victims that, fall back into the lifestyle. They might have drug problems. They might be out, recommitting prostitution offenses, all kinds of things. And we're trying to keep them, in line with prosecution, rescued and not getting in trouble and not having something happen to them because I need them for court. I need them to testify. And so it's really difficult because it sometimes takes 2, 3, 5 years to go to trial. And that's a long time to have a victim be willing, to show up to court and testify. So it's definitely an uphill battle, but that's why I named my course The Power of Awareness, because I've witnessed victims and judges and prosecutors and other detectives, and then jurors, potential jurors, recognize the true dynamics of trafficking. So then that way we're all on the same page and we get convictions.
Now, when the victim is waiting for trial, are they under protected custody, or is their identity hidden, or what does that look like for the victim for their safety?
So that's where between that and getting DNA evidence back within like 20 minutes, like on TV, people have an expectation that we're able to, keep these people in a, witness protection program somewhere and, have 15 bodyguards around them and safe for 2 or 3 years for trial. And that's just not real. What's real is that, with the use of victim advocates, survivor victim advocates, if there's any interference, we'll add additional charges for interfering or intimidating a witness. And I've done that. I've added charges on traffickers. I've added charges on traffickers' mothers for getting involved and trying to intimidate witnesses. We have, groups of people working together, like jail intelligence. They're listening to the jail calls. They're gathering evidence, about them, potentially wanting to threaten a victim or intimidate them. All those things working together is the things that we do that we can do in reality, as far as keeping a witness on board and safe. Definitely a lot of witnesses have moved away from where the incident happened, and, we'll get them a flight when trial happens, and we'll fly them back out, get them a hotel room so they can testify, and those kind of things. There are other organizations like BACA, which is Bikers Against Child Abuse, for juveniles, where we'll have them come in. And I've had a trial where 20 bikers came and they walked my victim and her, victim advocate and mother around court and to and from and back to their car and kept them safe. So there's definitely things that we'll be doing, but the whole witness protection thing is a little more involved than what TV shows.
Well, Hollywood definitely adds a spice to it. Just maybe it's sensationalism, probably, I'm guessing. It just keeps people interested, but not really real. I got to ask this. Say you're a parent. What are the signs that your kids could be involved and they're not telling you? Is there a sign, like red flags, that parents can see that their daughters or maybe sons are even being trafficked and they don't even know what's going on?
Yeah. So a lot of that, and I have, some downloadable tip sheets that people can get from my website, but I'll summarize a couple of them. A lot of it starts from parental guidelines, like expectation of this is how my parents are going to raise me, where the parents, will know the passwords and login information to all their accounts. The parents will get them a phone that's limited ability to get on the internet when they're younger, and they can gradually allow for more things, but don't give them a full iPhone at, 10 years old with full internet access and everything else. There are organizations like Bark Technologies and the Gab wireless phone, different ways to gradually allow for, as they mature, as they're, trusted, to use those things responsibly. And, parents that are involved, that's like the biggest thing. Parents that are involved in their kids' lives enough to know what they're doing on devices. Definitely if you are already past that point and you didn't, instill those things in, it's going to be a thing where you're going to need to maybe create a fake account and engage with them. Look out for other accounts, because I know a lot of kids have several accounts, the one that their parents know about, and then the other couple accounts that their parents don't know about. But being diligent about, asking them about who their friends are, asking them about who they're talking to, reminding them that, everybody wants a profile that's open to the public, because they're going to be Instagram famous if they get 1 million subscribers and they blow up on a post. All of that is creating a world where we're going to have a lot of predators and sex buyers and traffickers coming in constantly. If we as parents and responsible adults don't take action early on, that's what's allowing for this problem with our kids. And so being there, knowing who they're talking to, instilling rules. This is my house. I mean, my son's 21 now, but he knows that I'll take his phone out of his hands and look through it. I pay for that
Good
phone.
for you, Mom.
And I also know the passcode. He's never changed it on me, because he knows that I'm going to look through it at any time. And he's lived that way his whole life, so it's a normal thing for him. But it's definitely something that parents need to get back to doing.
Good advice. Really good advice. I never thought about that. Now you mentioned Instagram too, being a huge fishing hole for predators. I never thought about Instagram being that, considered a resource for predators.
Yeah, all of them that have the ability for private messaging.
Anything, doesn't matter.
And then some of these apps, there might be a parent that is trying to do their due diligence and look through the phone, and they see, that their child may have shared an image, or someone shared an inappropriate image with them. Don't delete it. Don't screenshot it, because there's apps that will indicate to the person that you screenshotted it. And so just, if you could, take another device and record it from the other device to capture it, or call the police and say, I need you to come get this evidence. I want to press charges. And then it might even be a situation where the law enforcement officers have the access to detectives that would take on that profile, and they may have you and your child sign a consent form. I've taken on many social media profiles and acted as though I was that 15-year-old and got the predator to meet me and then arrested them. And those are all things that I, couldn't do unless I had a parent that was down for, getting the bad guy, like the parents that I've dealt with. So, it's one of those things for sure that we do all the time, and, we want to catch these people. So please call.
Which is there a specific site out there that the predators hang out on the most? Is it TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or is it any site? Doesn't matter.
I really don't know any stats. I would say definitely the most popular ones. Facebook's for old people, so probably not Facebook anymore. But Instagram, Snapchat. Well, Snapchat's not as popular anymore, but definitely Instagram, TikTok. They've got this new Be Real app where it's, you send the message to somebody and they've got like 15 seconds to respond with a video of where they are right now, no filter,
Wow.
That kind of stuff. So definitely, whatever the most popular up and coming social media is, that's where these young people are, and that's where the predators are too. I mean, if you think about it, these traffickers don't have a 9-to-5 job. The only job that they have all day long is managing their victims and getting more victims so they can make more money. That's all they do all day long. And so they're really good at it. And so they're up in everybody's business as far as, who their friends are and who's posting where and who they can reach out to on all of these platforms.
Where would you, when you were in law enforcement, where did you catch them hanging out the most? And physically, would they be like at a coffee shop or where teenagers hang out? Is that kind of where their fishing hole is to get new recruits, kind of thing?
So in major cities, as far as out on the streets, there are street areas that are known for prostitution, street prostitution. They're called the Blade or the Track. That's where the traffickers are. And unfortunately, those areas are, where a lot of other criminal activity is going on, a lot of transient population, a lot of, robberies, carjackings, burglaries, a lot of people out on the streets. And so unfortunately, that is definitely where traffickers are already out there because they're watching their victims. And so they're going to also take advantage of the opportunity to recruit new ones if they see them. And I don't know how this happens, but when kids run away, a lot of times they end up in those areas.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's, I don't know if they're friend of a friend or someone they met online said that was a cool place to hang out or what it is, but they
That's
end up
bizarre.
in those areas. And that's what's really concerning.
Like if I was a kid, I would not want to go to the ghetto or the hood in Ventura
That's where they end
Boulevard.
up.
I'm just like, I'd go to the beach, Disneyland, somewhere fun, out the woods, go some fun town like San Diego to the beach down there. If I was a teenager, or the skateboard park,
Mm-hmm.
Or I know my nephew and nieces, they're all in their rooms. They got their headset on playing Call of Duty, and that's all they do. They're gamers. That's what they do these days. Or they're on their phone. My 2-year-old nephew Brody, he knows how to play video games, and he has higher kill rates than his teenage brothers.
Yeah,
That's crazy to me.
yeah, definitely.
That's the wild world out there. So we have the Super Bowl coming on, and for the audience listening in on the podcast, we have Heidi. What's your last name? I think it's Chance, right?
Yes.
Like taking a chance. Heidi Chance is with us. She's retired Phoenix PD, good friend with Stan, a good friend of mine, and she was highly recommended, and we just wanted to bring her on just to get a feel for the mom and dads out there that may have their kids going to the Super Bowl. Maybe get some exposure to the wrong predators out there. And she's an expert and has been on many cases dealing with human trafficking. So I just want to let the audience know who you are, Heidi, and just give them a little intel on how to keep their kids safe.
Yeah. And if they're interested, those tip sheets, I have tips for parents, tips for teens, and then I have a whole other list of sex trafficking indicators that I have on my website. And I made those up so then that way I can have a resource immediately, because people are asking all the time, how would I know if it was a sex trafficking victim, or what do they look like? Or, what do you do when you have something going on? Where do you report it? All of those things. And so I've made all these resources up just readily available to hand out. But definitely the sex trafficking indicators is also helpful, because a lot of times there are subtle signs that when you put them all together, it kind of makes more of a clearer picture of what is going on with a friend of a friend's kid, or the neighbor girl, or, someone you see on the side of the road, those kind of things.
Where do you see this thing going? It's been an industry that's been around us forever. Do you think the Fed's going to be able to curve it a little bit, slow it down, or what's going on behind the scenes in law enforcement?
Well, I talked about a team of people. I talked about, the jail, the law enforcement, the victim advocates, but that's whole one side of it. It's really going to take the community knowing what the problem is and then helping with the fight, reporting what they see, teaching their kids not to do certain things or talk to certain people and actually be there in their kids' lives. That's the only way that we would eradicate this problem, I think, because we're trying definitely with the higher sentencing, and certainly there's a lot of more work to do with sex buyers that create the whole demand for the problem in the first place. But definitely it is not something law enforcement can do alone. It's not something social services can do alone. It's not something the courts can do alone. It's going to take everyone together to really, decrease the problem and make an impact on it.
Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's going to take that much work to put a dent in it, especially like we could say any big events that attracts human trafficking, Super Bowl, the waste management golf tournament, anything that attracts a lot of population.
Yeah, it isn't the event's fault. It is, unfortunately, the demand, which are typically men that are calling up the girls or calling the escort ads or adding to the problem. So that's where it really is a problem. And it's one of those things also where, Backpage was taken down, if you've ever heard that.
I remember that. That was a big court hearing.
Right. And those were websites hosted here in the United States. And unfortunately, and that was wonderful that happened because we needed to do something, but the internet allows for other countries to have their own websites and be seen in the United States. And that's where, we're at with these other websites that also host the platform for the escort ads and the prostitution ads. So that's definitely it's not, I mean, we tried, but that didn't work.